but this is the webinar's number 12.
Yes.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you, and we have Winifred, and so I will cancel spotlighting Winifred, and we have with us Claire and Elaine. So Claire, can you say something so that we can see you?
Thank you so much. I am very happy to study in this video course.
Yes, thank you, Claire.
Thank you so much.
And yes, Claire, are you here?
Claire.
Okay.
Hi, Claire. We are looking at you now.
It's good.
Great, Claire.
I'm overwhelmed looking at all the faces. So beautiful. I'm so happy to see them. So happy to be with you for this session. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Claire. And we will now spotlight Elaine. Hi, Elaine.
Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for being with us.
I'm just so happy to see everyone's faces, beautiful faces, and just to be here tonight with you. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we're going to spotlight Gloria Bond, who is also with us today. Gloria, where are you? Can you say something?
Well, hi everybody.
Wait, let me...
Yeah, I would like to thank Teresa for inviting me to the session.
Video on?
All right. Wait. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi everybody, especially Winifred, Claire, Elaine, and the others. I'm so glad to be invited today to this session and by Teresa, and I followed the links that Teresa had sent me, and the sessions were so enriching and well prepared, and I know much has gone into the preparation, especially by Winifred and Teresa. Congratulations to all, and we have really moved since I was contact persons in 2007. And that a lot have been happening. We started it, but now I can see the results. And I'm very proud of all of you and continue to keep up with the good work. Thanks.
Yes.
Oh.
Thank you so much, Gloria. Thank you. Okay, let's proceed. For the information of everyone, some of us may be new to the Asia Pacific scene for justice and peace. Gloria was the regional coordinator, as she mentioned, from 2007, and you know, she held everything together for a number of years with newsletters and regional events, etc., etc. So that was so I thought I'd invite Gloria to this session because, as Gloria said, we are standing on the shoulders of the ones who came before us, including, of course, Claire, who will share with us later on, and Elaine was a member of the CLT before. So we are grateful for all these invited guests who are with us today. Can we have a reaction, please? A clap, a thumbs up, whatever on your screens. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for these reactions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we will start our session for today. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Okay, thank you very much. So we are doing the application of the Good Shepherd position paper on integral ecology to our programs and projects. Okay, so the purpose of today's session is to link and deepen the application of Good Shepherd position paper. And we have a guest speaker with us, Sister Claire Nolan, who will be sharing with us some of her insights. As with all our application sessions, these are the three guiding principles that guide us during this 2-hour session. all of you are the experts on the ground. This session is a guide to mission effectiveness. Second, we hope through this session to be able to see the integration of spirituality and justice and peace with good ministry practices. And of course, the third is that this entire session and the last 11 sessions that we've had is based on the human rights-based approach. And you would have seen this circle. This is the 6th time you're seeing this, where we speak of all individual human beings are rights holders whose rights are codified in the UN conventions and covenants, and empowerment of the rights holders to claim their rights. And we have looked at duty bearers. All rights have corresponding duty bearers, state or non-state actors. Like Good Shepherd, we are a non-state actor who are responsible in fulfilling the corresponding rights in a given context. Accountability of duty bearers to fulfill those rights. And our programs address the capacity gaps between the rights holders and the duty bearers. So today's session is a follow-up of the last session that we had on integral ecology. I thought I would start the session by breaking up these two words, and so that because we're all at different spaces and different starting points, so I thought I'll just break these two words up and see what they actually mean. So when we talk about integral, what it actually means is necessary to make a whole complete, essential or fundamental. Okay, so it is to make a whole complete. And when we speak of ecology, it is a branch of biology that deals with the relations of organisms to one another and to their surroundings. So as human beings, we are also an organism. So are the animals, the plants, things that are alive to one another and to their surroundings, okay, to their surroundings. So this is what integral ecology means. And if we put it together, all it means is that everything is closely related. We're looking at an ecosystem, a community or group of living organisms that live in and interact with each other in a specific environment. These are definitions of the word integral ecology and the meaning that we make out of it. So each time when we have a session, especially in the last few months, we've always been talking about moving from ego to eco, moving from an egocentric space to an ecosystem. It is time that we now understand more fully what do we mean by moving from an ego to from ego to eco. It means we are moving from where we are in the center to addressing an ecosystem, no longer just the ecosystem of Good Shepherd, but the ecosystem of where we are located, a community or a group of living organisms that live in, which is the world, our common home, and interact with each other, not just with each other in Good Shepherd or our program participants, but with all organisms in this specific environment. So we are looking at the interconnectedness of environment, economics, political, social, cultural, and ethical issues. In our position paper, paragraph 1, first bullet point that was highlighted by Winifred in the last session, we live in a time where science and theology offer reliable global insights about the interconnectedness of life and matter in all forms throughout the universe. And this continues in this first paragraph. Science and theology enriches our understanding of the world as a source of deep contemplation and sacred activity, calling us to the heart of what it means to be inclusive and reconciled in all ways with the whole. This is so beautiful, no? Because when we talk about theology, it's the study of God and religious belief and the connections that we make of it. And as Good Shepherd, we are always called to challenge existing theology. So what does it mean when we have a paper on integral ecology as part of our 6 priority areas? It means that we use contemplation and sacred activity now to say, what does it mean? What's happening in the world? What does it mean about this disconnect between who we are, the environment that we live in, and what's happening in the world today? It's calling us to the heart of what it means to be inclusive and reconciled in all ways with the whole. And just now we saw the definition of integral. It means the whole. So our position paper actually challenges us to reevaluate prior perceptions, previous understanding, and unquestioned practices. Okay, just want to move on. We see this tree. We've been looking at this tree in the last few sessions. And I just want to now introduce this tree in a context of the session that we're having today, which is integral ecology. At the top, we will see the manifestations. And what we don't see above are the root causes. So in a rights-based approach, we are addressing both the manifestations and the root causes. First manifestation, we see exploitation of nature. We see that in so many areas and in so many parts of the world today. Ecological catastrophe. A catastrophe is a disaster. Winifred shared with us in the last session about fires in Australia, about smog, about the way our cities are polluted, about how our waters are no longer the same today. We have depletion of resources. We have extinction of species. We see today many of animals, plants, living beings are no longer in existence. We see communities undermined. We see people who have been living on the land for generations having to be displaced because the land has been cleared for farming, or the land has been cleared for plantations, or the land has been cleared for housing. Development benefits are not equally shared. As Good Shepherd, we know this very well. We know from our economic justice paper how unequal the world's distribution of wealth is. We see injustice, poverty, ignorance, violent conflicts. We see the pollution of air and water. We know that very well. We just, in where I live now, in the state of Selangor in Malaysia, we just had a water disruption. And this water disruption has been happening over the past few months on and off because our rivers are polluted, and therefore our water supply is polluted. And as I'm speaking, there are different parts in where I'm staying where the water is coming back on into our taps. And this is very strange for a country like Malaysia, but it has become the norm. We have environmental devastation. We have global warming, overheated by carbon dioxide emissions and greenhouse gases. For those of us who may not understand the meaning of the word greenhouse, what it means is that in cold countries, people who come from cold countries would know what a greenhouse is. It is a place or a house that's covered in plastic where people actually grow plants and stuff like that. And this place is kept warm in winter so that the organisms can live. Yeah, the plants that are planted can live. So what it does is it traps the heat within the house in winter. So when we talk about a greenhouse gases or greenhouse environment, what we are saying is that the earth has now become a greenhouse. That means it's trapping the heat from emissions, from carbon dioxide, from the vehicles, from the factories, from different organisms that expel the gases. So these are some of the effects that we are seeing today, the manifestations. Now we look at the root causes: greed, corruption, inhumanity. We're looking at climate injustice. We're looking at environmental exploitation and the degradation of common home. We're looking at dominant patterns of production and consumption. How are we using consumption? How do we consume things? How are things being produced? Inappropriate use of power. These are some of the things that are mentioned in our Good Shepherd position paper on integral ecology in paragraph 2. So what we are hearing and what we are seeing is both the cry of the poor and the cry of the earth. We're looking here in the manifestations, effects that affect everything from nature to animals, to ecology, to politics, to economics, to people, and everything is interconnected. And our root causes here, if we were to map our root causes over the root causes of the 6 position papers that we've had so far, we will find commonalities. We will find the same root causes appearing in all the different position papers that we have. I now want to bring you to the next step. We're talking about integral ecology here, but we spoke about this in our first webinar, migration. Trafficking of women and girls in the second webinar that we had. The third was on prostitution of women and girls. The fourth was on the girl child that led to the IDG campaign and that led to this whole advocacy campaign that we had across Asia Pacific. It was really awesome. We also spoke about economic justice. And now I'm going to attempt to map how all these are interrelated, and it will look very messy. From integral ecology, from what we just saw and what the problem tree is in the background, we see that it is related to migration. People move in search of new means of livelihood. People move because of political crisis. People move because of the injustices that they experience. We also see trafficking of women and girls and how migration is related to trafficking of women and girls. And we also see how the whole entire system is also exploiting women, sexually exploiting women and girls. We see how the girl child is affected by everything. We see how it crisscrosses from one to the other, from the girl child to prostitution, from migration to prostitution of women and girls. We see how the girl child is also trafficked. We see how at each particular box, we have 4 arrows going in and 4 arrows going out. And then we look at economic justice and we say, could this be an attempt to address the injustices that are being experienced through an economic justice model, to help prevent trafficking of women and girls, to help safer migration, to give an alternative livelihood, or to stop prostitution of women and girls? And how do we address the issues faced by the girl child? So we look at our position papers and we see all these arrows crisscrossing each other. And we know that all our 6 position papers are interrelated. They are all integral. And so when we look at integral ecology, we're not just looking at the environment. We are looking at human persons. We are looking at all organisms that interact with each other. So I asked you in the last session, as we were about to end it, what was one takeaway from the session on integral ecology? And with that takeaway, what are you going to do about it? And these were your responses. And I now map out your responses for you to see what you said about what you're going to do about integral ecology. So we start with the self. First bullet point, review and start with personal behavior, the 5 R's, and our eating and consumption habits. Second point, reduce ecological ignorance. Educate self on issues, agreements, conventions, sustainable development goals. I must admit that the position paper on the integral ecology is the last paper in my whole sphere of priorities. But as I was preparing for this session and the last session that we had, I realized that I should have reversed my priority to integral ecology first, because it affects all the other priorities and is so interrelated to all the other priorities. So for me, in self, I have started to reduce my own ecological ignorance. And then for self is to respect nature and earth. And many, many people put this point to reduce the use of plastic and to look at the use of bottles. Especially when we go for meetings, especially when we go for seminars, especially in our communities, in the places where we serve people with drinks, are we using plastic bottles? Or are we trying to see how we can reduce the use of plastic? In the community, people said we will start at home, in our communities, in our neighborhoods. We will start recycling, composting, eco-enzyme. We will make attempts to green the community, plant trees, review communal usage, encourage environmental responsibility, support local farming. These are some of the things that you have written in your response to what am I going to do about it. And we go to the last bits on our programs, our Good Shepherd programs. Review programs and policies. Someone from Good Shepherd Australia, New Zealand wrote that they will rewrite the environmental policy for Good Shepherd Australia, New Zealand. I would like to ask all of us here in this session, how many of us have a policy on environment? We have policies on child safeguarding, child protection, women empowerment. We have finance policies, standard operating procedures for all our shelters, etc., etc. Maybe it's also time to explore an environmental policy. Incorporate climate justice in our mission. Join action groups, advocacy, networking, awareness campaigns, sharing on climate change. Start small and grow from there. So this is what we have written and what our responses were in our last session. And this looks like a very, very good starting point. I will share these slides with you later on so that we can see what we can do together. So if we look at this, what am I going to do about it? And we contrast it to the position paper, Integral Ecology, on paragraph 4 and 5, and you will see the parallel movements that you have said you will do. First is our stance. What is our stand on integral ecology? And the first response is to contemplate reality. The natural world, groups like women, indigenous communities are affected by ecological violence. And the second is to admit our complicity. Are we part of the problem? Are we part of the problem? And if you look at your responses here on what you're going to do for self, community, and programs, it does appear that we are part of the problem. Yeah. And our third response is reconciliation. It calls for a new consciousness, a new identity, new behaviors centered on the kinship of all creation and the implementation of human rights for all without discrimination. Many of us in our last response on the question, what is our one takeaway from the session on integral ecology? Many people wrote about the realization of our kinship in all creation, with all creation. And I want to go back to the first paragraph of the position paper, which says, the source of deep contemplation and sacred activity, calling us to the heart of what it means to be inclusive and reconciled in all ways with the whole. So if we say we are good shepherd, and if we are people-centered on prayer, and we draw our inspiration from Jesus the Good Shepherd, and we say that we are here to challenge the status quo, I would like to look at this and say, what are we doing as Good Shepherd in the spirituality of integral ecology? Not just in the social justice element, but the whole spirituality of it. What are we doing? In the Congregational Chapter Direction Statement, in this paragraph on spirituality, there is one sentence here that says, to recognize our interconnectedness with the whole of creation, which obliges us to protect our common home. It is in our direction statement in 2015. I bring you to this event that we had in August, the Asia Pacific Assembly. It was really a stupendous event. We all came together, 500 of us, all connecting in breakout groups. Many people said that they have never met another person, they've never had such good interaction as Good Shepherd before. And we had a session that was on scope, SCOPE, the bright sky of Good Shepherd, Asia Pacific. And we looked at our opportunities, paying attention to what is arising, what opportunities are important. And in our opportunities, item number 3 is our common home, care for the environment and ecology. We put that as one of our opportunities as Asia Pacific. Then we moved on to the next part, which is embodied action. What more is being called for to grow more effective relationships and mission with each other, with the earth, and with the universe? And in item number 6, we have this collective intention to address ecological issues, responding to climate change, crisis as Asia Pacific region. So we have the congregation tell it as a direction statement. It's a point there to care for our common home. It came up again in August in our position in the AP Assembly in opportunities and embodied action. And so we go back to this definition of integral ecology. Everything is closely related. We're looking at an ecosystem. We're looking at the interconnectedness of environment, economics, political, social, cultural, and ethical issues. And I want to share with you on the 10th of October, which was just 10 days ago, 10/10 in the year of 2020, this countdown was launched globally, okay? And this countdown is to build a better future by cutting greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030 in the race to a zero carbon world, a world that is safer, cleaner, and fairer for everyone. And we heard Winifred share in the last session about New Zealand committing to be using reusable energy by the year 2030. Okay, so every organization, company, city, nation, and citizens everywhere are invited to collaborate with Countdown and take action on climate. So Countdown is a global initiative, and I just want to show you the climate clock that talks about how our Earth is warming up. And when the Earth warms up, the whole ecological balance is shifted. And at the present moment, the average temperature of the world is 15 degrees Celsius. And scientists all over the world and environmentalists are telling us that we must not exceed another 1.5 degrees Celsius in global warming. If that happens, it will be a catastrophe for the Earth. And I'm going to show you how long more we have before it reaches an extra 1.5 degrees Celsius. Can you still see my screen?
Yes.
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 Oh, that's great.
Okay.
Yes, yes. We can
Thank you very
see.
much. So if you look at this climate clock, global warming to date, it is now plus 1.14956999, whatever. It will become
Teresa, we can't see.
You can't
Cannot see the
see?
clock.
Ah,
No,
okay,
no.
let me start again.
We can just see your PowerPoint.
Ah, okay. Do you see the clock now?
No.
Nope. Okay, I will stop my PowerPoint and just go to the clock directly. Hold on. Can you see the clock?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah,
So if you look at global warming to date, we are at plus 1.149569, whatever. It will be 1.15 very soon. And it calculates for us the time left to plus 1.5 degrees Celsius, and that's just 12 more years. 12 more years. And it looks like for all of us who are on this screen, we will still be around in 12 years. Okay, so there's a sense of urgency to address this. I'm going to stop sharing and move back to the PowerPoint. Can you see my PowerPoint now?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. So there is a sense of urgency to join the rest of humanity to see if we can do this countdown together. And on this launch on the 10th of October, Pope Francis also participated in this with a 12-minute video. And the essence of what he said was, we are faced with the moral imperative and the practical urgency to rethink many things about the economy, how we produce, how we consume, our culture of waste, its short-term vision. What is our vision as Good Shepherd? Are we long-term in our vision? The exploitation of the poor, indifference towards them, the increase of inequality and its dependence on harmful energy sources. And this is all part of the video, and I've given you the link here so that you can watch the video and the entire countdown video, which is very, very interesting. So I come to this part here, and I'm going to stop here and just ask us two questions, and maybe we just open up for a 5-minute discussion and see where we go. Are we interested to do something as Good Shepherd? And what can we do collectively as a region? Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and see your reaction. Your reaction from this. Please feel free to raise your hand or unmute and just share something. First question, do we want to do something as Good Shepherd? That's the easier question to answer. You can type in the chat box, or you can raise your hand, or you can, unmute and say yes, and let's see what happens. There are various options of what we want to do.
Yes.
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 Yes, I think so.
Yes.
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 I think so. I think we need to do something because our programs are about women and children and people who are marginalized. And the more we look at climate change and the more we look at global warming, the more work we have to do. And if we don't address it at source, all that we do will not have its effect. It will just mean that more and more people will be falling through the cracks. Okay? Thank you for all the responses in the chat group. It's all a resounding yes. The next question is, what can we do as a region? That is a very big question to answer at this point. maybe we could hear one or two people with some ideas, and then we will form a committee like what we did with the International Day of the Girl Child, and we will do something, and it could be an initiative for an entire year, because when we talk about integral ecology, there's no time limit, and we can involve everyone from communities of sisters to our program participants to all our schools to all our programs, everyone. So maybe we can hear one or two reactions. Anyone?
Yes, since we,
Yes, go ahead, Benedict.
yeah, since we are running a lot of schools, yeah, they can promote plantation, encourage the children to plant one plant in every month or yearly, so that the children can nurture that, and then encourage to maintain the garbage in their home, segregating the waste and the dry, re-educate them. This can be done in the school level.
Thank you, Benedict. Thank you. Thank you for that. Goretti, yes, go ahead.
I suggest for enzyme become our movement together.
Yes.
To edit the plants, I suggest for the ecoenzyme.
Yes. Thank you, Goretti. Thank you. Thank you. Peter, please say something so that I can spotlight you.
Yes. I had visited one school where children carry bottles of water and they don't finish all the water. So just throw and then go. So in one school, we kept a big tank where children all empty those bottles in that tank, and that tank water is used for either washing hand or plants. It's a small action, but beautiful. All children liked it so much.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. You know, I just want to thank Peter for talking about water that's wasted in water bottles. Every time when I go for a meeting and we are given water in the plastic bottles, I'm always appalled by how the water is left in the bottles on the tables, half drunk or just a sip taken, and everything else is thrown away. It's such waste, not just the water, but we have polluted the environment. So one more reaction and we will move on.
I want to give one more idea for rural women. They fetch water every day, drinking water. And sometimes the pot is...
Hello, Peter. Hi, Peter. We'll come back to Peter later. I think his internet connection is poor.
Can hear him.
We can hear Teresa.
You
We
can hear
Peter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ah,
I can hear him very well.
it must be my internet connection
I
then.
think so.
Yes, sorry about that.
Yes, the women, they just wash the pot and throw the water out and fill the fresh water. So we said, you small kitchen garden, you make 2-3 vegetables and put this water to those vegetable plants. It will be very useful. And many women are practicing it now.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah. Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for all these reactions. Thank you. I think aside from those in the rural areas, we also really need to educate those in the urban areas, because in the urban areas, the urbanization of cities and all that is what is also causing global warming. Sashi, one last reaction from Sashi. Yes, and Gendry after that, Gendry. Yes.
I believe that education is the primemost thing in this, because it's not just for the children. I think it is for every one of us, and that is so. I've been repetitively harping on this, that we need to educate, and hand in hand with it goes action. So I think that is the most important, and a Good Shepherd policy will be beautiful way to set the ball rolling. And I think what do I say? You know, my home is not where I live. And my home is where I'm situated as a dot in the universe. So that dot will be preserved only when I preserve all the other dots. So I think it is, the interconnection that you've been speaking about, Teresa, has to be very, very much deepened by way of education in all our. So we could have a very good program by which everyone at all levels can be sensitized to practice.
Thank you, Sashi. Thank you, Sashi. Thank you. And I see in the chat group that it starts with each one of us. Gendry.
Yeah, thanks, Teresa. I just want to share something that's probably very practical. There's at least one town in Victoria where they've made it a bottle-free zone. So the whole town has banned one-use only bottles. So none of the shops sell it. They can't use it. So the whole town is water bottle free, basically. And they have put in fountains so you can refill your own water bottle. But, you know, bottle-free zones is something we could probably do as a Good Shepherd response. I mean, you can, there's a sign at the town when you go in there that this is a bottle-free zone, water bottle-free zone. So I think it's a really, it'd be amazing how many bottles were saved.
That's right.
From going into the environment. So that's a thought that's not hard to do, and you can make that in your own sort of area if you want to.
Yes. So thank you very much, everyone, for your insights. They are all really, really very good. We will start a committee at the Asia Pacific level to see how we can include, how we can all move together as one on this initiative, because it not only helps us to look at the environment and to be ecologically conscious, it will also bring us together as Asia Pacific again, and we will build relationships across units. And if we are brave enough, we will extend this to the rest of the congregation. Once we have the initiatives lined up, we can always invite people to be part of the campaign. So thank you very much. And I will now like to share screen again. And move on to the next bits. This is the moment we've been waiting for. I reached out to Claire last week to say, Claire, we are, ending our position papers, our webinar on the position papers. Would you be free, and would you like to, would you be free enough to come and be with us on this last day, and also share with us your inspirations of what inspired you in 2010, 2009, 2010, when you started to conceptualize the 6 position papers? Because obviously, what you have done in those years is still so relevant up to today, and it has driven Good Shepherd mission globally. And I also asked Claire to share with us her insights on what she sees happening today and what could possibly be for the future. Yeah, so as you know, Claire was our NGO representative to the UN from 1996 to 2008, and the training facilitator for Good Shepherd Justice and Peace Office from 2010 to 2017. So over to you, Claire. I will stop sharing screen now.
Thank you, Teresa. It's so nice to see all the faces. Really, it's great to be here. You can hear okay?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
When Teresa invited me, I didn't have any hesitancy and was happy to respond. She sent me some questions that I think were helpful, beginning relating with making me feel a little bit old because I'm kind of the congregational historian on some of these issues. And I just thought I'd stick with her questions. And I took some notes, so I'm going to stay a little bit to my notes. So if I'm glancing down at papers, please forgive me. But I thought we could get through more efficiently and maybe have time for any kind of response or questions. So her first question were, how were the 6 topics chosen? And I think this is important to know. First of all, the 6 topics were taken from the priorities of the congregational chapter directions, especially from 1985 onwards and in all the decades that followed that. The issue of justice had been coming up strongly. It was consistently articulated, and it still is in recent chapter directions. And those directions were in accord with the Bishops' World Synod on Justice of 1971. So we've been at this for 50 years. It's also all consistent with Catholic social teaching. And I think it's important to highlight this because sometimes we forget that the congregational chapter is the highest authority of the congregation. Sorry, Ellen Kelly, she's my friend, but she is not the highest authority. The highest authority is the chapter direction statements. And so we have to always go back to those and see if in fact we are prioritizing what the congregation said in responding to the signs of the times. And secondly, the way the topics were chosen is that from the sense of our particular mission of using our voice for those on the margin, we interpret those priorities from our experiences around the world and on the ground, using our voice in shaping the priorities. So for example, I don't think our chapter directions ever speak directly, in recent years anyway, about prostitution. But it is one of our priorities. And that's because our work on the ground, and our priorities do speak about trafficking, our work on the ground has worked for centuries with women who have been in prostitution. And we are a small organization, and so we must use our voice strategically. And so when we talk about trafficking, it's interesting. We go, for instance, to the United Nations, and everyone is against trafficking. All of the NGOs, all of the governments. They don't need Good Shepherd voice strongly on trafficking there. We support it and we work on it for sure. Winifred can tell you that. She works very hard on it. But in many forums, no one speaks against prostitution. In fact, quite the opposite. Many people support it as something positive for women and their economic security. So when we look at a topic like trafficking, we took out the subtopic of prostitution and made it one of our priorities because we have such a long history and our interpretation of this issue as a form of violence against women. And when we chose that way, I had to do a lot of research within the congregation with our sisters on the ground. And we didn't at that time always agree on prostitution as a form of violence against women. It was a long journey to really dialogue and talk about and see if there was agreement on this, because the position papers are not my opinion. They are the interpretation of our sisters around the world for up to 400 years now coming, and our chapter direction statements. So when we have this difference, sometimes culturally, sometimes regionally, the voice of the congregation in a global context is best served if it's a unified voice. And so to dialogue and clarify these issues. And we had input from around the congregation 2 times in 2010 and 3 times at least in 2000, what year were they? 17 when they were updated. So that's where they come from. And I think it's really important that you're doing what you're doing as a region and doing it with your staff and doing it with all our partners, because it's even more important to have this unified voice as we understand ourselves more globally. Otherwise, we will have a divided staff and divided communities. And we know that even within our church, and I've worked in other church settings on the issues, there's disagreements, and we have to dialogue. We have clergy label women, condemn women as evil, and prostitution is a social evil done to them. So it's really important to know where these priorities came from. Basically, they came from you and all of your people on the ground and through our chapter directions. The next question that Teresa asked me were, what were the pressing issues at the time that in 2010, we began the position papers? Well, first of all, violence against women and the girl child has such a long history in Good Shepherd. That was just kind of a given. It didn't require too much thought. There was a clear understanding. Although even with those issues, we were not at that time, even in 2010, at all skilled in the use of the language of human rights methods and approach. And so that was brought to bear on it. But back in 2010, Good Shepherd was just beginning to integrate a sense of economic justice as a women's issue. They're just beginning to look at ecology with an understanding that this was related to violence against women and violence against the marginalized. And migration also has had a long history in the past 20 to 30 years. It's received a lot more global attention. And as a specific issue, it was not so strong in the congregation then, but it has really grown. And even now, as policies change and global attention has been given to migration, I think it needs even more attention within Good Shepherd of who are the ones left out of laws and left out of international pacts. And the migrants very much still need the voice of Good Shepherd. As we saw these developments and these priorities were chosen, we saw them very paralleled with global spirituality. We saw it in the work of theologians, particularly in economics and in ecology. And we saw it in international agendas as we heard it voiced through the United Nations. So Good Shepherd was very much within the mainstream of global concerns, I think. And then Teresa asked me, what have I witnessed over the years since the position papers were launched? Well, first of all, I've just been so encouraged that they are used practically and translated into a number of language, though I'm still looking for some of the more indigenous languages, such as Swahili in Africa, and some of the Asian language, so that they can be better accessed by the grassroots staff and the people who participate in our programs, that they can be shared even more thoroughly. So, and this training that's going on, like seeing these things happen, I never would have imagined it, even when they were renewed in 2017. So we had a worry way back that they were going to be just another piece of paper that Good Shepherd puts on the shelf, but they're really living documents, and I hope they stay living. Some of the international advocacy actions, I think, have fallen a bit short in terms of expectations. I've seen a decline, actually, in recent years in the number of human rights reports, the Women's CEDAW report and the Child Rights Convention reports. There seem to be less of them submitted through the Good Shepherd UN office in Geneva in recent years than it was a few years back. We started slowly in 2010, but they were growing. And each year we had more programs or countries submitting international advocacy reports, which then can be used, of course, for your national advocacy. So that fell a little short of hopes. So we've seen some things way beyond our hopes, other things falling short. And Teresa asked me for my hopes for Good Shepherd mission in the future as we go forward. I wonder, do we need a position paper on women's empowerment? Some years ago, I worked with the province of Myanmar on a policy on women's empowerment. And when I was working on that, I thought, wow, this could be a great topic to encapsulate in a short position paper that could really direct a lot of our work in mission. So I wonder about that. I wonder about what our position as a congregation is on sexual rights, gender equality, transsexual rights. Have we even started dialoguing about these? When I've gone around, when I was doing training, I had many, many instances of private and compassionate questions come to me about how Good Shepherd approaches things like homosexuality, women facing abortion. And I would answer them, but there's very few places where these conversations have begun as a dialogue among ourselves as Good Shepherd. Now, these are controversial issues because there are church positions on them. And yet, what does our Good Shepherd charism tell us? What does it demand from us? Does it demand something different about homosexual rights than the proclamations that the church puts out? And does our mission have a role in fulfilling that? For me, any position that Good Shepherd takes is shaped primarily by the mercy of God, and secondly, by the need and the sorrow of the person standing in front of me with their hand out or with their eyes pleading. No dogma or doctrine or proclamation of any church supersedes these considerations. That is what we mean by a charism. We are here to call even our church back to our best understanding of God's mercy and God's compassion. And so when I think of the future, this is where my heart is sort of drawn. And I'm sure there's other issues that you all can define among yourselves within your own societies and cultures. But again, sometimes we will be, like with prostitution, we may be the minority voice. We may be in an uncomfortable position. And are we willing to take that to speak for God's mercy and compassion? And the last thing I just wanted to mention, and I asked Teresa if she would put up a graphic on the board about this. And if you have it there, Teresa, this is on the last page of the position papers. And it's the mission development process. And it's a diagram that was begun by the Good Shepherd International Development Office and the MDOs. And then Justice Peace took it and refined it a bit, including some of the justice issues. For me, this schema can be used very effectively for a highly integrated approach. As Teresa said, every one of the positions and those that even aren't refined as position papers, but the issues of our mission touch on all of these areas. And I encourage all of you to study this more, discuss it more. It can be very useful in your ministries, in your programs, and in your community living as well, because our mission spans across our community and private lives, as well as our public mission and ministries. In new programs, we usually start at the top of this kind of circle. Research, needs, and assessment. We go to vision, mission. We build mission partnership. We do strategic planning. We get into human rights and advocacy. We do policy development. We get the capacity building, the training we need, the mission effectiveness programs that keep alive and very vibrant our mission and heritage. And then we evaluate and start all over again. But most of you, I dare say, are working in programs that have been long-standing. for many, many years. And the beauty of this schema is you can start anywhere. You can start anywhere depending on the need of your program. Maybe you haven't done much on organizational capacity. Start there. Your smaller organization. What do we need to build our capacity? Believe me, it'll take you right into your policy development, your mission partner building, your advocacy tools, and then eventually your planning for your next round of development. So, and likewise, how are you doing with these issues in your communities? Are you practicing human rights there? Are you developing your capacities? Are you getting your specialized training? Are you enlivening your mission effectiveness right within your living situations? So I just wanted to highlight it because I know some people get through the 6 position papers and that's great, but this might not get the attention that the others do. But I think it can be a little tool for you to refer to have on the side of your desk and say, what do we need to do there more? So having said that, I hope I haven't talked too long, but I tried to respond to what Teresa sent to me, and I don't know if there's a few minutes. Teresa will know this more if Teresa or any of the other guests, Elaine or Gloria Bon or anybody at all, if we have a moment or two to have any kind of response to anything that I offered. I know you have your small groups and things like that to get to as well, right, Teresa? So Teresa, I'll give it back to you, and just thanks for this opportunity to highlight some things that for me are very important, and I'm just so encouraged by what I'm seeing. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you so much. As Claire was sharing, I'm reminded of the chapter direction theme for the last chapter, energized by the spirit, we risk together for mission. And Claire's call to us to step beyond our comfort zones and to enter into areas of discomfort so that the needs of the sorrow of the person standing before us, and the mercy of God are the 2 driving factors that lead the mission. And thank you so much, Claire, for this sharing. And I'm also reminded, as Claire was sharing, how the integration of spirituality, justice and peace, and good ministry practice is not negotiable. That all 3 are together. Because unless we know where we come from, we will not have a clear direction of where we need to go into the future. And so in Asia Pacific, we've got this Towards Integration booklet that has been done, to help us explore the integration of the 3 elements. We've got the Justice and Peace booklet revised in 2018. I think we are on a good journey, different starting points. And at this point, I would just like to invite reactions to what Claire has shared, because it's important for us to hear each other. There's been a lot of very good messages in the chat box. I will send the chat box to the messages in the chat box to everyone as well after the session. Anyone,
can I come
please
in,
feel free.
Can I come in, Teresa?
Yes, please, Arlene, go ahead.
Claire, you have given me goosebumps. I feel the way that you have integrated all the position papers and the heart of it in terms of embedding a really genuinely convincing human rights approach deep in the heart and the bosom of Jesus and what he stands for. I am driven to tears because it's not dogma, it is pure love. And this is what the Good Shepherd has to stand for. And you have said this so eloquently and so passionately. And that's what me as a lay mission partner draws me to Good Shepherd. And I hope that we can stand together through radical transformation to make your words really be lived in our mission for each and every woman and child. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Arlene. Thank you so much for that reaction. I think you've just articulated what's in our hearts. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Teresa, it's Monica here.
Yes, Monica, go ahead.
I'm just thinking of the current theme, drawn by love, passionate for justice. And if we're drawn by love, we live what Claire has said. We have to trust the spirit, the love that's deep within us, that we come to through our stillness and our prayer. And if we think of the, like the church has positions which they've had to change over years. I mean, at one stage, the church said the world was flat. Another time that we didn't revolve around the sun. You know, like there's been so many things where the church has got it wrong. And it behoves on the people ourselves, not to put tickets or not to be arrogant, but if we can be women of prayer and passion, drawn by love, well, then we will have the courage to act for justice.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you so much. As Monica shared, I'm reminded again of the first paragraph in this position paper. Deep contemplation and sacred activity, calling us to the heart of what it means to be inclusive and reconciled in all ways with the whole. Thank you, Monica. Anyone else like to share? Virgo, are you wanting to share?
Yes.
Yes, Virgo,
yes,
go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, good morning, everyone. I was late, no, but I'm glad that I am here. It's very rare for me to be able to listen to Sister Claire, but what I heard from her stirred up a lot of desires and longings inside my heart and my mind. I am reminded of what and how a Good Shepherd family, a member of the Good Shepherd, has to position herself, regardless of whether the position is popular or not. There are just elements and values in us that are non-negotiable. And I want to thank Sister Claire for reminding us that in the chapter direction statements that we have, prostitution was not included, which is at the very heart of our foundation of our heritage. So thank you very much, Sister Claire, for the challenges and for the inspirations. And then, you know, it's like my mind is being opened up, and it allows me to do my own examine within and to critical thinking, and then to see where we can be steered more forward in our direction as we actualize our charism and mission in this time in our church and our history. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Virgo. Thank you. Maybe we can have one or two more reactions and then we can move on. And in today's terms within Good Shepherd, we also have men with us. So the charism also drives men who are with us in this audience here to be part of the mission. Thank you for the men who are with us.
Teresa?
Yes. Yes, Joan.
I just want to say a big thank you to Claire for being with Asia Pacific through the years and always being able to say a yes when we invited her or called you, Claire, and always also putting forward a challenge, because I recall once when Susan and I were looking at some funding, and that funding agency actually did not agree to give the money because of the position Claire was in, I think, or rather the position Good Shepherd had on prostitution. So we spoke to Claire, we spoke to you, I recall, and you said, you were very gracious to say, You leave it to us what we choose to do. And we decided not to take the funding because we wanted to, you were so convincing about the stand, not in a harsh way, but in a very passionate way, in a very gracious way, and we decided to give it up. But over the years, I think that the same organization has been and continues to support us in different ways. So you see, they do value our stand. They respect us, but for that particular one, they may not have given us, but they continued and it is a big donor with us. So people do respect us for our positions. And thank you for being the forerunner.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you for sharing. I remember I first met Claire in 2008 when she came to Kuala Lumpur for to give us a session. And at that time, we were just struggling with issues of justice and how do we incorporate that into our mission. Yeah, so thank you, Claire. Anyone else? One last reaction and then we move on.
Yes.
Yes, Bridget. Yes, Bridget.
Yes. What I want to thank Claire. At the same time, every action has to begin with me. We need to emphasize individually in our communities, in our units, region, congregation. What am I willing to do? And what steps needs to be taken as preventive measures? Somehow, for the Asia-Pacific region, knowing the reality at the grassroots level, there is so much of need for prevention. Rehabilitation has to happen, but can we take note of where the preventive measures has to be put in place? Thank you, Claire, for inviting us once again that we have a mission to the whole human race and to the ecology. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Thank you so much. Thank you. It does begin with each one of us. Thank you so much. Yes. We've got one last reaction and then we will stop here. Ramoshini. Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Good morning. Sister Claire, I feel so much happy to see you. Personally, when I was working in the war-torn area, I feel Sister Claire's inspiration really helped me. And these position papers are very methodically and very practical. And as we work with the women and children, every day we can apply these things into our life. And I feel, Sister Claire, you are very inspiration to my life personally and to our province. Thank you, sister.
Thank you, Ramoshini. Thank you. There are a lot of expressions of gratitude to Claire in the chat box. And I think going beyond that would be the expressions of gratitude also for the mission, you know, and for helping to craft and to shape the mission. So we'll go to the next bits, and I want to share my screen again very quickly to the next part. So we've got all these position papers and we've finished them all. Yeah, and the question that we need to ask ourselves is, what is my most significant takeaway from the webinars? And what needs attention in our programs and projects? I invite you to take a screenshot of this. Take a screenshot of this. What is my most significant takeaway from the webinars? And what needs attention in our programs and projects? We will go into breakout groups after this. So I will share the screen and let's look at our collective responses. Can you see my screen? Okay, yeah, if we've got 26 responses, which is good because we've got 26 breakout groups. So what is my most significant takeaway from the webinars? Start small and grow from there. Ecology, treating everyone equally and with respect. With respect and with kindness. Girl child is the most significant in these webinars. Some sense of oneness as Good Shepherd at Asia Pacific. Opportunity to be together. Inspired to go forward with Good Shepherd spirit. Empowered by resourceful people. Good and challenging beyond the position papers to walk the talk. That's true. The position papers are one thing, but actually living it out is something different. Much to do and so many people to reach. Can each individual measure the waste of paper, etc.? That's going into what we can do. Okay, the need to stand for, we need to rephrase this word. The need to stand for women in prostitution. Yeah, working for the environment. Understanding and deepening to want to study more the position papers for the applications. All the webinars will be made available in the YouTube platforms, and we will share the link later. Integral Ecology, all the webinars were impactful and renewed my whole understanding and reflection of Good Shepherd mission. Today's session brought together everything. The 6th position paper is the core of all the other issues. Thank you for that. Great awareness in the world in relation to Good Shepherd position papers. Economic justice, strategic plans for program participants, especially single mothers, especially during the pandemic. Interconnection between the position papers, we must work together. The ability of the region to come together and push the mission for justice and peace forward. Clearer understanding of the position papers on major issues. The spirit of the law outweighs the letter of the law. Importance of making small steps in addressing climate change. We must start now. Integral ecology, the most important one. We are part of the universe. We need to protect the ecology. Change starts with me. Commitment of Good Shepherd congregation, Sister Claire's quote, mercy of God, and the sorrow of the person in front of me. No dogma or law supersedes the person in front of me. Yeah, clarity of the papers, Claire's input, deeper understanding of the position papers, gain more knowledge. Yeah. The position papers could have just been pieces of paper, but the webinars have brought them alive for us. Okay, this is interesting. I am responsible. These position papers have made me discern where I am. Am I having a rights-based approach in my home? I realize that the 6 position papers are interconnected. We need to raise Good Shepherd one voice for integral justice. Okay, keep on networking. We need to explore and make our mission relevant and to continue. So thank you for these reactions as your significant takeaways from the webinars. I think it captures everything. And yeah, so next we go to what needs attention in our programs and projects. A personal commitment to live and practice human rights, human trafficking, the girl child, to become aware of interconnectedness. I change within and I will try my best to protect children in the environment. Best practices are needed at all levels. I agree with that. Evaluation, self-ministry to action. What needs attention in our programs, yeah? As a congregation to address ecology, work towards zero waste. Again, program for women in prostitution, because we need to show them that we stand for them, include people in our programs, especially ecology, to create program for ecological awareness. All the PowerPoints, all the position papers are interrelated to our mission, work together and to share, almost the same as the previous responses, yeah? To give preference to the girl child in the ministries, need to integrate all aspects which are presented in the position papers, start with me, promote inclusiveness, redesign our programs and projects. Good, yeah. We need to spread the Good Shepherd position paper to as many people as possible. Human trafficking, education, awareness, a new drive in educating ourselves. So it looks like the things that need attention in our programs would be starting from ourselves as change makers. And here there's English is a struggle for everyone, translating the position papers in local language for better understanding. Whoever wrote this in this response, I hope you will be able to do something about it because it's important for everyone to understand the position papers. Okay, here in Cebu, we need to be working on integral ecology as we face catastrophes personally. Need to create awareness amongst children, parents, and other beneficiaries, skills and capacity building. Okay, need a rights-based approach, focusing on duty bearers. And don't forget, when we say duty bearers, we are duty bearers ourselves because we are in a position of power when it comes to the power differential between us and our program participants. And we have a duty of care to ensure that the rights of all those program participants who are in our contact, that we make sure that we also assist them to meet their rights through our services. Okay. All position papers need attention, that's correct. Eco hubs that educate and advocate in an integrated way at local and strategic levels, empowerment of women and environmental protection, ecological training, pay attention to the use of water, plastic, garbage, have Earth Hour in communities, need to do analysis on the background of position papers so that it can fit in today, day by day. Economic justice and ecology need more work, need to implement the position papers. Every position paper is interconnected. Okay, integrate the position papers in all our programs to the wider community and network, take ecology and women empowerment as priority in our programs. I'm going to stop sharing, and I want to congratulate everyone for your input in the Google document, because it shows that Winifred and I have achieved our objective of actually bringing the position papers alive to everyone, instead of it just being parked somewhere in our laptops, in a filing folder that's called Justice and Peace, and it has remained there since 2018 when it was reviewed and revised. And many of us are nodding because we know that's our position with regards to the position papers. So we need to make a change in our position, not just for the climate, but for the position papers. And if this 6 months has not started something within you to make that change, I don't know how we can help each other anymore. Because short of, there's no other way to do this except that we each take responsibility and we each take that first step. And we cannot look for another person to be telling us what the position papers mean, because they're all now on YouTubes, they're all now on webinars, and you have the input and the application. If you're not sure, Winifred and I are around, so there is no more, there's no more excuse to say we don't know. To put it in a nutshell and to be as clear as possible so that we don't beat around the bush. So we just want to thank everyone for this input that you've given into the Google form. And that wraps up our 6 position papers. And at this point, I'd like to invite Priscilla from Garatola, India, to say a few words to Winifred. Where are you, Winifred? Hi, Winifred.
Hello.
Are you still with us? Yes. Okay. So Priscilla,
Yes,
you may start. Yes, please. I'll spotlight you, Priscilla. Please go ahead.
I am privileged among the many and chosen to express my gratitude to Sister Winifred. You are an inspiration to each one of us, and I express my gratitude to you for your generosity in sharing your knowledge and experiences with us, and your zeal to work towards women and children and ecology. Thank you very much, sister. We value your opinion and for being such an inspiration to me and others too. It was so nice to hear from you, your experiences, very rich experiences. We have enriched, and whatever we have got, the spirit, the zeal, and the enthusiasm that you have in you, you have given us. We make sure that we practice it from within, like start from me and then to the people whomever we come in contact with. So this your rich experience will not be in vain. It will be instilled in us, and then we live out those experiences and richness that you have shared with us. So thank you, sister. Thank you for spending your time with us and your willingness to reach out many more. So through us, it is reached to, it's more than 1,000 times people will be reached out with all these informations. Thank you, sister. We continue to pray for you, for your health and for your good, all the desires that you have in reaching out to many more. Thank you, sister. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Priscilla. And I'm going to ask everyone to unmute, and we all give a round of applause to Winifred, because virtual applauses you can't hear. See? Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Winifred. Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. I now invite Paula to share her screen. We have a gift for you, Winifred. Yes.
Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, Paula, would you like to say something, Paula?
So Winifred, this is...
Hold on, let me mute everyone so that we can hear Paula. Yes, Paula. You need to unmute yourself, sorry.
That's okay, I'm okay now. So I hopefully you can see this, Winifred. This is just a little picture that was created over the 6 weeks of trying to take away what is at the core of the position papers. And for me, I saw it as women and children and women and young girls being in a very impoverished position, and how Good Shepherd can lead them into this zeal of flourishment through listening, awareness, education, employable skills, trauma healing, self-empowerment, to this growth in self-sufficiency. And probably for me, the key takeaway was that this is a 10-year vision. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but we have to have it as our as the sun that we walk towards, I think, to change the structures and systems that discriminate. And one of the key things I heard you say many times is to do justice every day. And I think if we can hold that in our hearts, to do justice every day, that we can bring about human rights and kinship for all creation. That's all I want to say. So thank you, Winifred. Thank you for leading us, and thank you for your commitment over the last 6 months. And I'm just in awe of the work that every person in these seminars is doing day to day, doing justice every day. But thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you so much. Winifred, we hope this art will encourage you, you know, as you continue to make a difference in Good Shepherd in all that we do. Thank you so much.
Well, Teresa, I can't let it go without having maybe the last word, or the second last word. Paula, thank you very much. You captured my new hairstyle perfectly.
I did notice you had 2 hairstyles.
And to Priscilla, thank you very much. And in some senses, like, it was not in some senses, in many senses, it was exciting to be meeting with you upon the midnight hour in New York, discussing all these very important topics. And I am so, so pleased that Claire, who was the originator and the inspirator, if you like, behind the position papers, was able to be here this evening to add the depth and breadth and length of vision that she has, both from the past and which is driving us into the future. So what can I say except thank you to everybody. I was overwhelmed by the numbers that participated on a monthly basis, well, twice a month, in terms of the webinars, and it has been my pleasure to be with you and to participate and to share. And certainly I've learned in the journey as well. I think you have shared with me as much as I have shared with you. So thank you very much for this. And I really and truly have to say that I loved the International Day of the Girl, and I loved the fact that we had girl panelists speaking on behalf of girls and for girls. And I know that this will be part of the leadership into the future, where girls themselves will actually be leading the way. And only this evening I saw where 2 children were arrested in India, in Delhi, for participating in the climate marches that were going on. I think they have been the kind of people horrified that it would happen, but it has happened. And I think one was as young as 9 years of age, and maybe the other was 11 or 12. So I think children really are the way forward. They do have the wisdom, they have the voice, and they have the courage. So congratulations again in terms of the Day of the Girl. And I know it's continuing over the next 7-8 weeks. And this is a tremendous momentum. And I am so happy for it and for all of you. So to Teresa Simmons, our fearless leader always, thank you very much for taking the initiative, launching it, and bringing us to this point 6 months later. I'm delighted that Claire and Gloria Bonn were on the call, and Elaine Basinger, because they also have been part of the journey in very significant and very deep ways, both in terms of physical mentoring and support, visits, etc. But also I think in terms of this networking that we talk about, that we are all linked together, and certainly the energy I think that we bring in terms of the work for justice does expand and surround the world and the globe, and we're all caught up in, I think, a huge energy for good, while we recognize the suffering and stand in front of that suffering, you in particular, on a daily basis. So what can I say? We're being led by our Good Shepherd, and we intend to follow. So thank you very much to everybody. Thank you, Teresa.